All right, we are live. We're on the Swimmingly Show. We got a special guest today, the one and only David Arluck, the founder and CEO of Fitter and Faster Swim Camps. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. Good to
Yeah,
be
we're
here.
pumped. Yeah, so David, we do this every Friday. Charlie and I like to get on and talk about all things swimming. I'm sure you've seen a couple of them, and we thought it'd be great to start hosting some guests. And you were one of the first that came to mind. So what we'll do today, we'll just Charlie and I will back and forth and ask some questions, and we just really want to hear where you are at in the sport, your philosophy on things, your thoughts on the grassroots, all of the good stuff. But we'll kind of dive in and just go back and forth.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Well, first question, we were watching some of your videos, the Ask a video we watched, and some of your long form posts is cool. So we're always keeping an eye on you out here in the industry. And one thing that you talk about is swimming isn't just a sport, it's a community. Dave, what do you think people outside of the sport, let's bring them in, let's help them understand what is the thing that the people outside of the sport maybe misunderstand?
An interesting question. Is it that they misunderstand it or we don't present it well?
I suppose exactly. Yeah. What do we misrepresent that makes people struggle to understand the benefits of the sport?
Well, there is so many different aspects of the sport of swimming, right? You have learn to swim, which is when you're first introduced to the sport. People claim that about 85% of Americans know how to swim, but probably about 55 to 60% know how to swim competently. We have a big gap between learn to swim and actually joining a team, which is a big issue. And it's easy to kind of like fall out of the introduction to water. You're having a good time with water, you fall out of it. I truly don't feel like it's any sort of misunderstanding that people have about the sport. I think people are allowed to have opinions. It's like there's so many different aspects of the sport that we just don't present in a very palatable way to people. And I can probably list 100 different things, and we could talk about learn to swim, the connection between learn to swimming and joining a team, what it is to be an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old on a team, and going through that process, what you get out of the sport. I think most healthy minded parents don't have their kids joining teams because they want them to become Olympians. It's that they want them to learn a healthy activity. So I think that there's a lot of different aspects about the sport that could be presented in a much more palatable way and bring many more people into it. And more importantly, perhaps keep more people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're doing such a good job bringing new kids into the sport, and you're so in tune, I would say, from a outsider's perspective with the grassroots level, trying to get these kids from summer to these awesome clinics. I know you work with year-round teams and all of that stuff, but you do a great job bringing in new kids to something fun in these clinics. So, with you being so in touch with the grassroots, same with us, what do you think our primary responsibility as the swimming community is, and what grade would you give us today?
I give us a C. And again, I feel like there's just a lot of little battles that need to be fought and addressed. You gotta address the gap between learn to swim and competitive swimming. I think Asphalt Green in New York City has an amazing program called the Big Swim. They're doing a really great job where they have swimmers, kids, parents, all from throughout the city come in, and I think they do a 25, and at the end of the 25, they get a little medal, and introduces them to the sport. They've had Rowdy Gaines come out before, and they do nice things to just introduce new people to it. I was the founder of a scholarship called the Andrew Fisher and Doug Ergang Memorial Scholarship. There were two friends of mine who were killed in the World Trade Center in 2001. And the whole idea was to get deserving kids from around New York City to join that team and experience competitive swimming. And the dream was that maybe one day somebody would become an Olympian. Leah Neal ended up, becoming one of those
That's right.
athletes.
Yeah.
I just think that there's lots of little battles that need to be fought. I think college swimming is a big issue that needs to be addressed. Age group swimming, connecting the learn to swim to the teams, and how we look at swimming as enjoyable for spectators and fans and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like where this is heading with the connection between learn to swim and the teams. So we definitely want to double down on that as we go. But talking about fitter and faster, you have the technique in the water, you have the inspiration. What happens to a kid psychologically when they're there with an Olympian, with a world champion, with a national team member, and they're towering above them and you're just there. What happens to that 10-year-old, psychologically getting to be a part of that experience?
Well, I think there's a lot of tremendous value to that, but I think one of the secrets, not secrets to our success, is that that's not the whole game. You meet someone who's 6'7" and your parents are 5'9". You're like, oh, I'm never gonna be like them. So what's inspiring about that? It's cool to meet that athlete, but I think ultimately when you're meeting athletes that have achieved a lot of success through the sport, becoming scholar All-Americans, swimming at University of Michigan, swimming at Texas, swimming at Cal, swimming at Denison, or any of the, Emory or any other these other really great schools, these great programs, like that's really our pro level. Like the Olympics is something else, right? Like the Olympics is, the 12 guys that you pick out of the NBA, and those are the guys that go, right? So like our pros are the guy, the men and women who are swimming in college. It's our most exciting circuit in the world. Those meets are amazing, and there are hundreds and thousands of athletes doing that. And what we do is, yes, we have Olympic champions, we have Olympic relay swimmers, but we also have what I would consider to be fantastic athletes who have achieved at a really high level collegiately and academically, maybe professionally. They know how to connect with kids and give them a great experience. And they really care about the learning that goes on, and it's not just
Mhm.
that inspires someone, right? I think that there's value to that, and of course people want to meet athletes with a name, and it's terrific, and we want to provide those opportunities, but ultimately it's what did you leave them with
Mhm.
besides I met so and so? And I drive that philosophy hard. And when I first started Fitter and Faster in 2009, 10, 11, I got a lot of pushback from Olympic champions where they're like, "Oh, we did other camps and they didn't, we got to speak about ourselves for 45 minutes and what I thought about on the podium." And I'm like, "Look, you got 5 minutes to introduce yourself. They know your name. They came because you're here, and that's great. But they want to learn from you, and they want to learn about the catch, and they want to learn about rotation or whatever it is that we're going over that day, and I take that really seriously, and that's how we do that's how
Yeah, I
Out
mean,
of
well, we go for it, Charlie.
Just
Yeah.
to follow up to that, I like what you're saying, and I appreciate how you've molded that model into, you have these incredible athletes that are at the collegiate level and providing that package so that they can be the teacher. I'm sure a lot of them might be better than Olympic athletes, as far as being a teacher and an educator. Well, I got to know, who's the best teacher that you've seen at one of your events?
There's no one great teacher. You know what I mean? I mean, there's lots of really good teachers. I mean, there are definitely some that are so much better than others, for sure.
Yeah.
And we make sure that we have about 150 to 200 clinicians, and we have
Mhm.
mentorship that goes on with them. John Nelson, who's on staff here at Fitter and Faster, is organizes the hiring of all of our clinicians. He was a coach at York Swim Club, and was mentored by Michael Brooks and so many others who have
Mhm.
had great success. So we really, take the teaching seriously. We have, we understand what's being done at every camp. But to answer your question, Nick Thoman, he's been with us for 17. He was young when he first started. He had a lot of learning to do, and on how to communicate, and he took it really seriously. And that guy cares about the result. He wants you to get better by the end of the camp. He's fantastic. Roland Schumann. I mean, he's probably the most inquisitive athlete that I've ever met in all the elite athletes I've met. He inquisitive, asking questions, studying starts. He's the one that everybody copied, on the start originally.
Mhm.
So when you get him for a starts camp, or, I mean, he held world records, and I think in breaststroke even, or the 100 IM at one point, along with his freestyle, medals and at the Olympics. He's amazing. Atiba Wade is unbelievable. The Hillis siblings, Dylan and Gabby Hillis, from Florida. I mean, they're amazing. They weren't Olympians, but, you know, unbelievable clinicians who really care about the result. So,
Mhm.
there are so many, and I'm proud of them, and I'm really lucky that they're just so dedicated to their craft.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we see you guys as the largest swim clinic in the world. We've seen the product; it's amazing. But we want a little business insider from you, and we want to hear what really makes the company tick. Is it someone special? Is it the clinicians? Is it the values? What is it that makes you guys really tick and move forward?
It's a lot of things for sure. I have the best teammates in the world, who just really, really care a lot. It's a mix of people who come from different backgrounds and have different experiences, some heavy in swimming and some just heavy in being parents and having experience in life and business and aptitude and marketing and education and operations, and we like to try new things.
Mhm.
We always want to get better at what we did, and when you have scale, you literally can get better every single week. We can learn from what we've done and improve what we do. And so we really care a lot. I think I've personally matured a lot over the last 20 years. I've learned a lot about what it is to be a leader and a coworker. And I wake up every morning and I feel responsible to support my staff, and be a good teammate to them, and make sure that they have what they need. And we all push each other. Everybody, doesn't isolate themselves in the company. I think everybody really does a good job of making sure that other people in the company pulls their weight, and then
Mhm.
also, if there's something that they need to learn, helps them learn something new. And we hire new people who are willing to share their experiences to bring new ideas into the company, which I think is really super important.
Nice, nice.
Which is why, by the way, I'm really excited that, with Kevin Ring coming in at USA Swimming, I think it's, we've met a few times, and I've been
Mhm.
out to Colorado Springs. I think it's great that he comes from outside the sport. I think it's a good opportunity for the sport. I was the outsider into the sport. Like at this point, people are like, oh, he's not an insider. But I was, in
Right.
2004, 2003, when I first started working with Gary Hall Jr., I was the outsider. Like I had an affinity to swimming. I was actually a fan of Gary's before we actually met, but I wasn't an elite level swimmer. I dabbled with it a little bit here and there, and I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of things I actually hated about swimming, which also really, I think, helped me with what we've done.
Mhm.
So I think that Kevin coming in and working with, Jake and Joel and all the others at USA Swimming, and, Yuri, and, I think some good things are gonna happen.
Yeah,
Totally agree with that.
we hope so. We had a chance to meet with him briefly a couple of weeks ago. We kind of share all of those sentiments for sure. So the connection, the bridge, the learn to swim to the swim teams making the jump. Millions of kids are doing learn to swim every year. Tiny percentage of them make the jump. We think it's like less than 1 in every 5 kids. So that's the stats we've seen. But we have this easy to sell, learn to swim, water skill, life skill. It's a no brainer if you can sit a parent down and explain. Of course, we want to do that, But then there's this big gap, the drop off to get to that next level. That's our focus day to day. Here at Swimmingly. Tell us about your perspective on that.
Well, I'd love to learn more about what you guys are doing and try to bridge that gap. I think that's definitely the greatest opportunity to bring more people into the sport. But it needs to be done in a healthy way. I mean, there's clearly just not too many organized fun things for kids and parents to do in an organized way, other than to splash around at a pool during the summer, that really connects them from learn to swim and ultimately get onto a team.
Mhm.
So the development of that is important, and teaching teams how to make that into, a small business. It certainly shouldn't be, doesn't even need to be a profitable business. It needs to be something that, creates that funnel, right? And that foundation, you get more people into it. And then, once they're actually on the team, it needs to be fun. I mean, I think that swimming is a really easy sport to quit, and it really is,
Yeah.
and I think that we make it really easy to, right? And just because you say swimming is fun, like and I know I'm gonna get some pushback on this, but I'm not wrong. So I'm gonna say it. I think the dumbest campaign in the history of USA Swimming was when they ran a campaign a bunch of years ago, and it says the funnest sport.
I knew
Like
this is
what
what
a
you were gonna say. I could
what a
tell.
crock. Like that is not the selling point for swimming. And it is fun. It can be fun, but is it the funnest sport? Like I feel like it's important, like, and going back to, like, what it is to meet an Olympian and things like that
Mhm.
that you were asking me earlier. I feel that people like think, to be told the truth. I think that they like substance. People don't, you know, there's lots of superficiality in the world, but people don't become customers of a sport like swimming because of superficiality.
Mhm.
And I feel like if we present swimming for what it is, it's camaraderie, it's dedication, it's improvement, it's you go to practice and you can have fun. Like, you know what? Maybe it can become the funnest sport if they're doing relays and what do they call it? The catch up swims, and you're trying to touch each other's feet
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
steel goggles, and like, yeah, like if you're doing that a lot as 7, 8, 9, 10 year olds, and you could even throw in that a little bit every once in a while, and you're playing water polo as, 14, 15, 16, 17 year olds, and you're having a good time, then yeah, maybe it is. And maybe, and there certainly is a group of people who feel like that swimming is the funnest sport. But if you want to bring people into it and you're going to spend a couple $1 million on a campaign, like that's not the selling
That's
line.
not it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're certainly not convincing someone like, the sister-in-law of Travis Kelsey to sign their kid up to swim because you just run a campaign that says it's fun
Fun
sport.
sport. They
Yeah.
should be like,
She's
prove it. Prove it.
It's just not happening.
Yeah.
she
So
said her
so I
piece,
think
that's
that,
for sure.
sorry?
I said she said her piece on the subject, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And she's entitled to her opinion. And she ain't wrong.
Right.
Those pool decks are hot, and sitting in the stands are hot. I've been there. But again, you sell the sport for what it is. You start to present it in a way that is palatable to more people, and there'll be a whole lot more success. And I feel too like, when you just speak the truth and you talk about the truth of the sport, that's how you improve things. So, put it out there, and start working, right? And you don't need to do one thing at a time, right? Like you could fight a whole lot of battles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so once upon a time, you were an outsider looking in, and then starting the business, you've obviously learned a lot about the sport. And then even better, you have Alex who has grown up in the sport and you've seen every step of the way, so you have a fresh new perspective on that. So the question really from all of your experiences, do you think a traditional year-round swim team is designed properly as they are today for a 7 and 8 year old that might be coming from the learn to swim or the summer swim programs? Do you think they're designed for that age?
That's an interesting question because I don't know what a traditional swim team is. I really don't. I think that there's a lot of teams that have different levels of success. And like, so for example, York Swim Club in Pennsylvania, which was coached by Michael Brooks and then John Nelson, who's working for us now and leading our clinicians. And now Michael Brooks is back there again. Tremendous success. I think they have 80 total kids on the team. I think basically all their high school kids, or a very large percentage of the high school kids, are making tier pro swim on a team of 80 kids in York, Pennsylvania.
Awesome.
And then you have your Dynamos and Swim Atlantas and, end caps and machines doing really well. And then of course you have other success stories throughout the country. There are certainly things that all those teams, down in Austin, Michael Koliber is doing, amazing things. So, I think that if you were to talk to the owners of all those teams, they would all say there are probably things that they could do better, and that's what makes them good. And that they, like, so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's kind of the same of what we were talking earlier. I think that if we have more opportunities on all teams to connect, learn to swim with competitive teams, you're going to get more people into the sport. And one of the nice things on NCAP, and I can speak most intimately about NCAP is because I see it, is they have different options for the level of commitment as kids get older. So, you could get kids who are much more academically focused. Not that the other kids aren't academically focused, but if they only want to come 3, 4 days a week, there's a group for them and they can do that and they could be okay with that. And we as a sport want that. If your schedule only allows you to come 2 or 3 days a week, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
And I feel like for different reasons, a lot of teams aren't in that position because of perhaps pool space and economics and other things. So when they get an athlete who really can only come 3 or 4 days a week because of family issues or because of school or travel or whatever, the coaches can, not in every case, but in some cases may come down on them and be like, hey, this is not a great thing. And then the pressure hits and then the kid is out.
Right.
And I would love to explore ways to help combat that across the board. I think it would lead to more people staying in it. I think the sport grows when we're able to address that. So I think that's definitely one of the issues. And I believe that a lot of, there are, especially the bigger teams that have more resources, are able to create these other groups.
Mhm.
And those kids still swim fast. There are
Really?
kids coming out of these groups where they're going and they're swimming in college, but they're only swimming 4 days a week, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Or maybe they only do that until their sophomore year and then or their junior year. And then like, all right, you know what? This last year I'm gonna go 5, 6 days a week and they're gonna move up and different level of commitment. Um
Yeah,
and I
what do you think? I mean, for you mentioned before we hopped on, I mean, Alex, it sounds like Alex had a great experience with his age group coach. Was it the optionality to go less, or what made it successful for him in your eyes?
Well, his age group coach was a woman named Dory Halby, who I think the world of. She is fun but tough, and at that age, the parents, you wait in the, you sit in the stands and you look you look what's going on, and she made the practices fun. She talked to them in a fun way. She never yelled at the kids. They played games at the end of practice every day. They really looked forward to it. And she just had a way about, turning technique into games. And
Awesome.
and all those kids that were on that, in that group, they're still swimming. I go to like a championship meet or, there was a high school championship meet and they're all swimming.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really cool thing. And a lot of them are swimming really super fast. But even the ones that aren't swimming so super fast, they're still doing pretty well, but they're doing it and they're enjoying it and they're having fun and taking photos and that's cool. So she's definitely doing something right. She's an all-star. And I'll tell you one other thing. What a great time and easy time for kids to drop out of the sport.
Mhm.
And the numbers at USA Swimming really saw a big fall off in that group that was, let's say, 8, 9, 10 years, 11
Yep.
years old, because, parents didn't want to send their kids to swim outside. The kids would complain about it, whatever. And quite frankly, I was concerned too.
Yeah.
Alex was in that group, that age group. And I was like, man, I'm like, he's gonna be swimming outside. It's like 20 something degrees. I'm like, he's skin and bones. Like, is he going to enjoy this? But he swam with a guy named Steven Sakaris. He, is a group, I think they called it, I don't know, Silver One or Silver Two. It was one of those. And they played games almost the whole time. They just made it fun. They did relays. They did maybe a couple sets, and they just had fun. And there were parents who were like, they would say to me like, are they getting any better? Like they're just doing relays, and I'm like, if they're just falling in love in the sport and they actually want to go to the next practice
Yeah.
and they're swimming outside, like what's better than that? Like
Yeah.
really, like what's better than that? They want to go to the next practice, like they'll figure it all out. So I think he did an amazing job, and quite frankly, I'm not sure how many of those kids that are still swimming right now, especially these kids that are like 15, 16, 17 years old, if they didn't have great coaches making it fun for them during COVID, um, it would be, an issue.
Right, right. Yeah, one thing you were talking earlier about, what we're doing here to bridge that gap. And I think you see some of those great coaches like you were saying, I think there's too few of them. I think there's too few of them. And you see the ones that are great really shine, and we talk about those programs, and then you see, well, what about the 70% of teams that didn't even run swim meets last year? And we have this lack of supply of great coaches. And even on programs where there is a great coach, that's not always the coach, coaching your son or daughter when they're 6 or 7 or 8 years old, right? We of course know this. And so our question has been, well, how do you codify that great coach? How do you bridge the gap so that swimmer gets exposed to that opportunity? Because they may not have that opportunity until 12 years old as coach so and so, or 10 years old. And so we've just been introducing this concept that either the learn to swim on the one side can adopt, or the traditional year-round team can adopt to do the bridge. And it's really just a simple curriculum, with the swimming league tools to implement it. And it's been really cool to see, because we just want to create, like you said, that sales funnel. We want them to have that pool so that they're exposed at that fun level, so that they can then get to commitment and dedication, and think of those things as fun, because they are. But it's as simple as, the curriculum is the simple concept of the practice to play ratio, that if you're 6 or 7 or 8 or even 12, and you need to learn the skill, and then you need to play the skill. And you need to do that in a way that's codified, that's standardized. It's not a guessing game. The newest coach, maybe it's part-time, maybe it's a college person coaching, can implement turnkey. They can put their own spin on it. They can put their expertise on it, but they're not trying to write workouts in the car 17 minutes before practice. And so you practice the skill, you play the skill in a structured meet environment, in-house, at the pool that you always go to. And you do that in 7 days. It's not, well, we got to wait 10 weeks to go to the meet, or it's not till the end of the month. It's no, playing in the sport is a weekly cycle. It has to be a weekly cycle. And so I just wanted to share that with you. That's the basic concept of, where we've been in terms of bridging that gap.
Well, I love that. I love that, and I would love to learn more about it. I feel like teams want something like that, and need something like that. And part of the important thing is understanding what has kept teams, each individual team from having
Mhm.
that program that connects learn to swim um with with competitive swimming. And then the other thing too is I feel like people get very uncomfortable with the unknown, not just in swimming, but in everything. Right. So if this is what we know, this is how we're gonna do things. Right. But some of the fastest kids I see swimming right now at 16, 17 years old are kids that were okay at 10, 11, and 12. And I'm pretty damn sure that, and some of those kids went on vacations and they went to Florida and they went skiing and did other stuff. And I feel like there's a discomfort with, oh, you're going to miss practice. It could be an insecurity thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to talk about those things because I think it's real. And it's okay if some of these kids are going on a vacation or enjoying their life. They're going to come back to swimming. You're showing them a good time at practice. They enjoy their self at practice. They enjoy the meets. They find it fulfilling. They're going to come back. And when they're ready to dial in and skip a vacation, they're going to dial in and skip a vacation. But if we're forcing people to do things before they're ready, they're going to move away from it, right? And that
Yeah.
happens in
Right.
work, that happens in sports, that happens in relationships. Hey, let's get married. We just met, so like,
Like, whoa, whoa,
it's
whoa, whoa.
true.
Maybe, let's gradual. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, hey,
So it's like
go ahead. Go ahead.
the point.
I was going to say you brought it to mind. A certain famous teammate of mine always likes to use this line. He would say, because people would ask, you never took a day off for how many years was that? And he said, if you're out of the water for a day, then it takes 2 days to get back to that level, whatever that means. And that always rubbed me the wrong way, because first of all, it's not true. It's
Not true.
It's a myth. And I think it builds the myth of what it takes to be a champion. and it puts the, puts the cookies on a shelf where no one else can reach it. But what you're saying is the reality. If we just look at these athletes, they go on vacation, they take the ski trip, they come back, recharged or ready to commit at a level that they weren't ready for 2 months ago. And
Right.
that cyclical nature is, I mean, it's just really healthy. And so yeah, I totally agree with what you're
And
saying.
it
We
goes
see it
for
too.
anything, like, I work a lot. I work a lot and and drive myself, heavy and hard. And when I was younger, like it was real. Like I would skip the vacations. Our family would go on vacation, I would skip it. I would, there's a lot of evolving that I've done. And there are still times when I make choices. I'm like, this is what I have to do, and I do it. But there are times when I'll go for a hike and I'll just bring my iPad or just my phone, and I have Notability, and I'll keep notes, and I'll just clear my mind. I'm like, some of the greatest ideas I get are just after getting away, and
Mhm.
I'm recharged and I'm retooled, and I never really maybe it took me until I was 50 years old to get to that level. But the more we could teach that, trust that, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
fully.
the breaks are good. I mean, I remember looking back on college days and even days at NAC, and after a big meet, whether you swim lights out or poorly, that result motivated me even more after that break. I was like, okay, I got a week to go and think about it, whether it was good or bad. And I was like, man, I'm excited either way because I'm either going to get back in the pool with a fire lit under my ass, or I'm going to ride the high momentum of swimming lights out at the last meet.
Yeah,
But it
that's
did
right.
take that break for me to really understand it and get locked in again. So I totally agree with all of that.
Exactly, and the next step of that is you have to have coaches that trust you to be there. Like, they care about your result, they invest in you, right? And part one of the things that we could teach in the sport is like is as a coach or even as a parent, it's letting go. It's like, we know you're invested. You drive the kids to practice every day. You care about them very much. You love them very much. You want to see a good result, but trust that they want it too.
Right, right.
And you could guide them, you could help them nutritionally and all these other things, but the kids, and I think that that also helps a lot as well.
That sounds like a lot of great parent education that could be handed off. It's like, hey, parents, here's some stuff on taking a week off. Here's some stuff on nutrition. Just constantly educating them with this stuff would be super helpful.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, like I say, I started Fitter and Faster before Alex was born. Right before, and the first camps were in that first year that he was born, and every year we've gotten better. It really started to get even better when I started to see his progression and see his friends and go to the meets and look at everything that's going on. And again, I say, like, a lot of these kids that are swimming lights out right now,
Mhm.
they take vacations, they go to France, they go
Right.
skiing, they do these things, and they were not lights out at 12 or 13.
It's
They were good,
yeah.
but they were having fun, and they were.
It's almost the secret weapon that's not so much a secret anymore, is just having that balance, having the counterbalances. So swimming's still hard, but you have to have the right counterbalance to that. Training 10 days a week or 10 times a week, may require going on a trip where you get away and you're not in the water for 3 or 4 days. That's, it's a counterbalance. It might be a superpower. It's not that 2 steps back, 1 step forward mentality anymore, for sure. So, last question kind of on this, on the fun work debate, Hayes, if you're tracking along, the play aspect of the sport, we talked about it a moment ago, kind of what we're doing with the practice and play ratio, 1 to 1, once a week. You get through the whole cycle and you recharge and you can do it again. Sometimes we get pushback on the play concept. As structured play, it's a swim meet. We use the term play session.
With like two events.
Yeah, right. 2 events, not 20 events, not 2 hours, but 60 minutes. And I think some coaches at first blush they almost have this impression that play means unserious. Play means lesser than. Play means not as hard. And you were talking a minute ago, kind of giving the swimmer the ownership, trusting the swimmer to take ownership of it. Tell us about your perspective on do we need to be introducing that play concept more, trusting the athletes to kind of take it and run with it to make it fun? What's your perspective on that, David?
Oh, I love the concept, and it's an interesting way to look at it. Like, I look at my business as a puzzle. Like, it really is. Like, to me, it is really like the ultimate game, right? Like, I like crossword puzzles and things like that. Like, I like, what are the pieces? What's happening next? And I enjoy the challenge. That's and the responsibility that comes with that, right? When you're dealing with kids, I feel like that's something that, and it's also something that I grew into, right? So when you have an opportunity in a sport to gradually introduce them to like these, the play, the concept of play, but but having fun with it, but it's a game, and you could get other metrics out of it and take responsibility even within the play,
Yeah.
because there are rules within the play, and have fun with it, I believe would make you a more well-rounded swimmer. And then with each step that you take in the sport, it becomes maybe a little less play and there's more at stake, but you're having more, you're enjoying it more, right? Like, one of the issues that gets spoken about but also pushed under the carpet is, the mental health of a lot of swimmers. And if they would learn to enjoy
Mhm.
and have more experience with, the whole thing is like, ultimately it's, you hear a lot of ball players say like, I play a ball sport, I'm playing a game, like that's what I do, right? But you don't hear that a whole lot from swimmers, right?
Yeah.
On
Like,
a sport? What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
exactly. Exactly.
you know what I mean? So it's like, I think that like at a smaller level, like, even if the play is like underwater dolphin kicking, or, you
Kickboard.
know, changing it up, or, hey, like, look, last week you did a freestyle event. You ain't doing freestyle for another 3 weeks. Let's do fly, and let's work on this. You're working on different things. Hey, let's count our strokes, or, this week we're going to go for a lot of tempo. This week we're going for distance per stroke, and you're changing things up, and you're making it interesting, and you're making it challenging, and different kids of different levels have the ability to, compete and deal with each other.
That's
You're
right.
learning to take a different level of ownership in the play. And I believe it translates as you progress in the journey of your swimming career, and it progresses into your professional and academic careers. And, because ultimately we're just playing life, man. Like, we're making the moves to
Yeah.
make things work for the people around us.
I mean, you're
Let me,
speaking exactly our language. I mean,
let me
everything you
double
said there was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, full agree here. Let me double down on that. You guys tell me if I'm crazy or not. Was it that entry level, the bridge, and then as you go, that journey, it develops, and you're totally right. It's like today, you got the ball sport folks that I play a game, they get it. They know the rules of the game. And when you're 6 and 8, kind of in that traditional coaching mindset, you don't even know what you're walking into. You say, "Well, what'd you do at practice?" "I swam." There's no set written out. It's in the coach's brain. You don't know the rules of the game. Like, what game are we playing? You don't know. And if we can codify that, then the 6-year-old, the 8-year-old can know the rules of the game. They can break the rules. They can learn, how to not break the rules. But they have this framework that they can fit into and figure out, I've kind of outgrown it at this point, or I haven't really figured it out yet. And when you don't have it codified and it's just in the coach's mind, the result is, "Well, how was your practice today, honey?" "It was good." "What'd you do?" "I swam." And that's what we got to get away from.
Well, right. I think the car ride home is very important. That's something that we also talk about, in our camps and with our clinicians. I feel like the car ride home is extremely important, and it's actually, as a parent, it's the thing that I enjoy the most, about my swimming. My son's swimming experience is I love to drive him to practice. It's time that I get to pick him up after school. I drive the carpool. I really enjoy that time. We talk about, the day in school, like, and what they're looking forward to in practice if they bring it up. And it's just, times that I'll always remember. And it's funny when you talk about the ball sports, they bring the infield in. The bases aren't at 90 feet, and they're not even pitching in some cases. They're doing T-ball. Completely changed the sport for these younger kids to make it more palatable. If they started pitching from 60 feet, they'd be swinging on a bounce and no one would be hitting. And in football, they ain't tackling, and they're doing all these other things to accommodate the sport to introduce the kids. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're swimming 25, DQing 8-year-olds and doing all stuff, and all sorts of other things. Now, I do believe that yes, you need to swim correctly and you need to know what's legal and not legal, but there are ways to bridge that gap like we're talking about between learn to swim and competitive swimming that doesn't make the sport any less tough or whatever, but just
Right.
makes it more interesting and palatable. Don't get me started on Meet Mobile. Like, there's things that we can do to make the sport more fun, more interesting, and compelling to a broader audience in the way that the ball sports do. The basketball teams lower the nets.
Yeah.
Like, they're not shooting at 10 feet. They're lowering the nets. Like, are we swimming at 12 and a half yards or 15 yards? Like, what are we doing?
Well,
Yeah.
it's
You
funny you
know?
say that's a great
So you want to
example.
teach kids how to do swim team. So, okay, do 25s, do it in a 15, you
Right.
do 30s, right? It's some
Exactly.
15s,
Exactly.
learn how to do a flip turn and you're just bouncing off walls. Like, let's figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
every kid at some point has said, I'll race you from here to there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Amen.
make it get that sport.
Yeah.
So I
Like,
was
there's
at a
more we can do.
I was talking to your point about the short pool. I was talking to Bob Hubbard out in Phoenix, some school owner, great guy. And what some schools are learning, and they're kind of a lighthouse example of this, is their quote unquote short pools is a secret weapon. It's an asset, not a liability for swim team because they standardize, a 20-yard pool, if you want to call it that. And he has 12-year-old kids that are swimming twice a week on their junior team that are swimming in this short pool. And our traditional mindset says, well, that's not how do you do that? That you can't do that. That's not a real swim team. And they're finding out that they're getting more kids and they're staying longer because they've lowered the nets, just to your point.
Right. No, exactly. And like there are all sorts of like, hey, this person, I'm not able to do this. And I think I remember reading an article before Tori Husk's first Olympics where they were saying that she never really got to train long course. It worked out all right.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Worked out pretty okay,
Right.
Yeah.
you know? And after COVID, I mean, athletes were still swimming pretty damn fast. And I also remember a period of time where they were like, oh, they're never going to break the world records after they banned the super suits in 2009. Are they all gone?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, the sport progresses and and our philosophies about it can evolve as well.
Yeah. I mean, you guys do such a good job of these, making these moments obviously instructional, but exciting, inspirational, and fun. And thinking of like, of course, you have the clinics, and maybe a kid comes to one, maybe they come to five. How do you think that affects the rest of their development and keeps them excited? Like throughout that year, say they come to a clinic in February. How do you keep them excited the rest of the year about swimming? Because obviously they're pumped after the clinic. So, what has to be true to get their excitement growing and growing and growing after that, after a clinic like your guys?
Different people, different families leverage the clinic, the camps in different ways, right? And 26% of all competitors at the Olympic trials in 2004 for the United States had been to a fitter and faster camp at
Wow.
some point in their career. Some maybe one time, and we had some athletes, one of whom made the Olympic team who went to, 6 or 7, camps, and went to different states. Again, I feel like the camps are so much more than just like, I'm pumped after I leave. I hope that people are excited after they leave and looking forward to get back to the next practice and implement a skill that they learned at the camp or could continue the process of improving that skill and keep it in mind for the rest of their season and into their championship meet. And we try to have different camps that meet the moment for different athletes in their season, whether it's starts or strategy or underwater dolphin kicking or whatever. Ultimately, I feel that inspiration comes from within. And if you can position someone to, you know, learn how to, wake up in the morning, and it's sometimes a tough thing to do, but wake up in the morning and get ready to go, and you show up to swim practice, and you know what you're there to do, and you're able to do that. If you could, like, what I want to do is I want to help empower people to find the inspiration in themselves. I think that, like, one of the biggest jokes in the world is like a motivation Monday. Like, if you need to be motivated on a Monday by an Instagram post, you got bigger problems. Right? Like, like, and I understand that you're not gonna wake up every single day or go in every single week. You just had a great weekend. Oh man, I gotta get back to work. I understand it, and I've been there. But ultimately, high achieving people, young and old, find that within themselves. And I want to create experiences that are meaningful and touch people so that they can find the motivation within themselves. That's how I see things.
Nice,
Awesome.
nice. All right, starting to kind of wind it down here. We really appreciate your time, but the USA swimming question: if you had control, you were the king of USA swimming for the next, let's say, 2 Olympic trial cycles. What's the first thing that you would change?
Well, first off, it's an awkward question because I'm excited about Kevin Ring coming in, and believe he's going to do a really terrific job. He's talking to the right people, and exposing himself to all sorts of different aspects of the sport. I believe that I could have an impact and have had an impact on the sport over the last 20 years, and I'll continue to. And I'll go where I'm invited, and I'll knock on the doors where I'd like to be involved. We're the biggest sponsor of the American Swimming Coaches Association because I feel that educating coaches and supporting coaches and in their career and helping to make swimming and coaching a career is a really important thing. And we've been a sponsor of the Age Group Coach of the Year Award at ASCA, and now we're the title sponsor and presenting sponsor of the World Clinic that they offer every single year. And, we're doing that for, the next several years. So I think that's really important. We are a sponsor of the College Swimming Coaches Association. And I recently became involved in that with them because, of the issues that I've seen in college swimming, and a lot of the battles that they're involved with. And now we're also the sponsor of the Scholar All American and the All American Award, and doing other things. And because I want to help elevate those awards, and I also want to elevate those athletes. We talk so much about the Olympics, and USA Swimming's job is to build an Olympic team. But like I said earlier, I think that college is our pros. It's the most exciting series, and the more we could do to elevate the athletes who are achieving academically and athletically is so important.
Mm.
And I want to support that. I'm also on the board at the International Swimming Hall of Fame because I want to honor our highest achievers. Like, we talk a lot about bridging the gap between learn to swim and college and the top level age group kids, but I all the age group kids, but I also want to support our biggest stars in the sport from around the world. So, to answer your question, I'm gonna get involved in all the areas that need involvement. I think that there's a lot of things that need to be done, and we covered a lot of them. We got to work with the teams, and we got to work with the LSCs. We got to work with the NCAA. I think there's a lot of issues going on there, and um, make them happen.
Yeah, I guess one of the last questions, if we want something to grow dramatically over the next 10, 20 years, we've talked about pulling a lot of different levers. What do you think out of all of those levers in your mind, what do you think has to be first?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so if we want to grow swimming, the numbers, the participation numbers, the numbers that, keep dropping or staying the same, if we want to grow that number dramatically over the next 10 or 20 years, what do you think has to change first?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that need to change. I think you got to do more to bring younger kids into the sport and make it more palatable at a younger age. So you're bringing more people in. We got to work with the coaches on the issues and the realities that they're dealing with, and help them, because a lot of them are working multiple jobs, and they coming from different circumstances, and understand what their needs are so that we could create programs that truly fit and not just dictate to them, hey, this is what you need to do. And so that we can bring more people into the sport, and then also make it more palatable once they're in it. We also need to make college swimming a lot more healthy, right? And not only for those college swimmers, but also as the carrot for those other kids going through the sport. The other thing is so many kids grow up, they're like, oh, I want to go D1. I want to go Division 1. And it's like, look, I think with the way college swimming is going, I think there's going to be Olympians coming out of Division 2 and 3, a lot more in the next 10 to 20 years. You're going to see a lot more Olympians and great coaches going to these other divisions. I also think that swimming has been kind of like a pawn in all of this. Like, we're kind of like blowing around like a leaf because of all that's going on in college basketball, and especially men's swimming with Title IX and football. So I think that we need to do more to take the bull by the horns and make it much more healthy. I think club swimming in college is also something that could be elevated a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that
Love
can
it.
be
Yeah.
done. Oh, and the one last thing that I think is also equally important. If people are having good experiences in swimming, and whatever it is that they got out of it, if it was good, those are going to be the people who are in marketing departments and running companies and having kids and sponsoring the sport and sponsoring swim meets and putting their kids in the sport. So if we are able to create better experiences for athletes of all levels, they're going to come back to the sport in some way, in the way that I did, and contribute to its growth. And it doesn't necessarily need to be just as a competitor and staying in it. It could be as a sponsor. It could be as a venue. It could be as so many other things. And that's a huge opportunity for us as well.
Yeah.
Love it.
Awesome.
Love it.
Thanks for
Hey,
answering that. I'll let Charlie ask the last question, and then we'll respect our hour here.
yeah, just some rapid fire. Some of them are a little silly, but you gotta give us your best off the cuff answer. So, all swimming related. Most underrated stroke.
Underwater dolphin kick.
Ooh,
Yeah.
hard. I like hardest skill to teach kids in the water.
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know.
S-
As a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old,
yeah.
a perfect streamline.
There you go. All right, best swim set you've ever either seen or heard about.
I don't know. There's been a whole lot. I can't answer that.
Best storyteller of all your clinicians. Any shout out here?
I mean, there's just so many. Gary Holt Jr. is definitely the best storyteller.
Go Blue or Hook 'em Horns?
That's tough because I've worked with so many athletes, and I know that you guys also. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, I've worked with so many athletes from Texas and Michigan, and continue to. Really, I mean, like we've had so many great athletes that we've worked with from both schools, and currently we probably have maybe a few more from Texas, but for a while it was Michigan. I mean, everybody from Clark Smith,
John
to
Shepard.
Jimmy Shebit and Peter Vanderkay and Connor Yeager. But I do have this one thing to say about Michigan.
I'm all ears.
The Michigan athletes uniquely would send me, not that I needed any of this, like, personal handwritten notes, like to thank me for things and just like show appreciation for whatever it is that I did. And not that I ever needed it, but since you asked the question, I really feel that Michigan has always stood out in that way. And it's not unique, so from like Davis Tarwater to Connor Yeager to the Duluth sisters to the Vanderkay brothers, they always really went out of their way in that way.
I love that.
Yeah. So I just found that to be a really personable,
Cool.
a nice touch.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, we appreciate your time today, David. And there's certain companies in the industry that are the drivers. You guys are certainly one of them. So we appreciate your leadership in the sport.
Thank you. You guys too. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
You bet.